Hello my fellow pixel pinchers. For all intents and purposes, my name is CubeSteak, and today I wanted to talk with you guys briefly about 4K and whether or not it's really the next step for your gaming or productivity setup. Take a look around YouTube and you'll probably find that more than a few of your favorite content creators or resident techies are uploading content at a resolution of 4K. They make it look so effortless, maximizing the res of every pore and pimple on their face, making the average user, proud to have just buffered their first 720p video, feel leagues behind the big boys pumping out frames that quadruple the resolution. It's easy to feel like you're missing out on something all the major players are in on, but are you really? I'd like to share a few points from my experience owning a 4K monitor and being a 4K content producer and gamer, coupled with some info from the web that'll help you determine if 4K really is the next leap for mankind's PUBG matches. As you've probably realized, 4K has its benefits and its setbacks. If you are a basic web surfer streaming 4K content from YouTube or any other platform, you'd need a powerful internet connection and a build with hardware manufactured within the last 5 years or so. Strictly watching content on a 4K monitor doesn't require as much horsepower as rendering frames and gameplay, but it would require that your GPU, integrated or discrete, supports a 4K resolution for your monitor. Let's talk briefly about content production. Producing content in 4K at 60 frames per second or even 30 frames per second is a whole nother animal, and it's taxing on both your processors and your storage. For example, when I was recording my Minecraft relaxing long play using OBS software, I recorded on average 45 megabits per second. Had I recorded 60 frames per second, I would have averaged some 68 megabits per second. Just to give you some reference, that raw file, uncompressed, reached just under 20 gigabytes in a 40-minute recording. That's approaching the size of some smaller AAA titles. And don't get me started on the upload times. Even after editing and compression, I found that a render of this video, approximately 8 gigabytes in size, took over 8 hours to upload. Ain't nobody got time for that. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. This, coupled with the problem that your work may be in vain on account of the fact that many viewers are still watching content at 1080p, and you will find that 4K content production becomes costly however you slice the cake. One day I'm sure that we'll find that as your average web surfer becomes acclimated to a 4K interface, 4K content will become as average as, say, 1440p is becoming, and then we'll move on to 8K and so on and so forth. But for the time being, it seems 4K content intake is mitigated only to those with top-tier hardware and internet speeds. Now, let's talk about 4K gaming. Whether it be 1080p, 1440p, or 4K, your experience is about sacrificing some features so you can benefit from others. As a blessed owner of a 3080, processing 4K graphics and single-player thematic experiences has brought a smug joy to my heart, knowing I belong to a limited group of people with a rig badass enough to do so. But for a long time, I could have told you that I was just as satisfied with my 1080p experience, knowing that I was maximizing frames and had more affordable products with higher refresh rates available to me. This excerpt from Optimum Tech summed up the minutiae nicely.
Think of it like this: if you're gaming at 4K resolution at 60 frames per second, your GPU is rendering 497 million pixels per second, but that same pixel rate at 1440p, you're able to render over twice the amount of frames per second. Now this is a really oversimplified explanation, and there are a lot of factors that play into this, like CPU load and video memory, but you get the overall picture. The point here is that I would hands down take the higher frame rate 1440p experience here over 4K 60 FPS for pretty much any game, any day of the week.
Additionally, Steam, a PC hardware and software retailer, conducts an insightful survey on a monthly basis that provides a telling outlook on the average setup of its users. Would you believe that 4K users of Steam survey make up less than 3% of their user base, while 1080p users make up just under 68%? You can rest assured that if you are still a 1080p user, you're not being left behind. That said, if you're looking to enhance your experience with a display that'll give you a little bump in resolution without a major sacrifice in frames or refresh rates, consider 1440p. It's a thought that hadn't occurred to me when shopping. I just wanted the best you could buy without considering if the upgrade made sense. That said, cost is obviously a major factor, but if you were to consider the investment needed to display 4K content versus 1080p or 1440p, you probably want to take smaller steps than a leap in what may be an expenditure with more drawbacks than benefits. True, 4K monitors are becoming more affordable, but GPUs aren't, and that's a fact. At the end of the day though, much of what you'll settle for or invest in depends on your playstyle and productivity needs. If you're a noob hunting, itchy trigger-fingered esports master, you'll probably say save the frames with 1080p and throw 4K out of the window. Producing in 4K is a rarity that may give your channel an attractive edge. That said, you'd be producing for a smaller audience of individuals who even have the gear to appreciate your work, who may not have the gear to appreciate your work. If you're a filthy casual like me, savoring epic single-player experiences and cinematic visuals with high-resolution textures, and appreciate the clarity of 4K entertainment, beginning down the road to a 4K-capable rig could be for you. In conclusion, don't beat yourself up if you're still sporting 1080p. You're probably the wisest of us, especially if you take your gaming seriously. 4K remains a luxury commodity, and probably will so well into 2022. With all that said and done, I'd like to thank you all so very much for watching this brief little video. Don't forget to leave a like if you have a sec, and let me know in the comment section if you're a 1080p user and if you're going to upgrade or not. Your feedback is much appreciated. Thanks again for watching, and Godspeed your return.